When Trump launched his second presidential term with Elon Musk as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, the promise was that together, those two billionaires would make our government run more efficiently.
In almost every sense, I think in every sense, the DOGE project was just an abject failure. First of all, government spending, which was the putative reason for DOGE, is up this year by more than $450 billion, money that went towards ripping apart programs people need. Now, DOGE has gone out with a whimper, dissolved sometime in the fall, according to the White House, so Musk and his DOGE team kind of slink away from the disastrous project as Americans and people around the world suffer the consequences.
All we heard for months was about how much waste, fraud, and abuse was running rampant across seemingly every government agency. That is to say, we heard about the waste, fraud, and abuse, but we weren't really shown any of it. Suddenly, we heard that these departments weren't woefully underfunded, as was typically the case. Instead, the narrative shifted dramatically and abruptly. These departments were now overfunded, apparently, and using whatever money that they did have in the worst ways possible, so much so that they were no longer trusted to manage their departments themselves. They needed outside help from Elon Musk and his team of child coders. However, the love affair between Elon and Trump was predictably short-lived. After a very public love bombing, a rushed partnership, and even a rushed cohabitation, the two egos simply were unable to coexist. The breakup was fun for all of us. Elon was out of the White House and he was flaming Trump on his social media platform for being in the Epstein files, the very same Epstein files that we would come to find Elon Musk is also in. But once Elon was gone, the work of DOGE did not stop. The director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vought, picked up where Elon left off. And it was seamless, almost as if Vought had been the guy behind DOGE all along. And yeah, he was. Vought is known for being the architect of Project 2025. And well, wouldn't you know it, the guy whose idea of running an efficient government was just to gut every department, inevitably making it more difficult and yes, more inefficient to run, has been engaging in some waste, fraud, and abuse himself. When Trump ran again in 2024, his big campaign promise was that he was going to put America first. Having seen how he's operated in the first year of his current term, you might be wondering when and how he's been fulfilling that campaign promise. He's continued to send weapons and billions of dollars to Israel, even though his own voters don't want him to do that anymore. He invaded Venezuela and kidnapped its president, declaring himself its acting president, and then proceeded to ship barrels of Venezuelan oil to Israel. He's threatened to invade or even annex entire other nations on various continents. We have South America again, Africa, Europe. He claims to have been busy ending wars all over the globe, even though that claim is called into question pretty often. And the one conflict that he said he would end within just days of being president is still ongoing over a year later. And as far as the people of this country go, he has deliberately increased prices on food, housing, gas, and more with his tariff and economic policies. He's given more tax cuts to the rich and to corporations. He's enriched ICE to the point that it now has the funding of a decently sized military, and then he turned those ICE agents loose in American cities. Seemingly, the one thing that he did do in support of the America First platform was cut aid that the U.S. was sending to people all around the world, aid that millions of people depended on. And we can argue whether or not that money was being wasted or abused, but the fraud seems to come in after the fact. According to the White House Budget Office, $15 million that would have been sent out into the world as aid has been redistributed, not to the American people, but to just one guy, to Russell Vought himself, who apparently needs all of that money for his own security detail. Mother Jones reports there isn't much left of USAID after Trump and Vought worked together to dismantle the agency last year. Just around 100 staff members are left to close out all operations by September. Still, the White House Office of Management and Budget, which Vought oversees, is allocating $15 million from what remains of USAID operating expenses to pay the U.S. Marshals Service to protect the political appointee through the end of 2026. And how are they justifying this astronomical expense? How do they justify taking all of this money from people whose literal lives depend upon it and just giving it all to Russell Vought? Well, his life is in danger, they say. He's not a very well-liked guy, and so he gets a lot of death threats. That's what they tell us. There was one incident when a man showed up at Vaught's home and allegedly attempted to murder him, but Vought wasn't, bashed in the head like Paul Pelosi was, nor was his house set on fire like Governor Josh Shapiro's house was. And I'm not trying to compare whose tragedy was worse, but as far as I know, neither of those incidents resulted in $15 million of aid being redirected to provide security for either of those other men. Also, I'm not advocating for anyone's life to be threatened. I don't love a loss of life. Who does? Maybe Russell Vought, actually. Maybe he loves a loss of life because he certainly seems to encourage it, and at the very least, he doesn't seem bothered by it. As ProPublica reported in October, Vought is the architect of Trump's broader plan to fire civil servants, freeze government programs, and dismantle entire agencies. He's overseen tens of thousands of federal employees losing their jobs and was tasked by Secretary of State Marco Rubio to oversee the closeout of USAID, the agency now bankrolling his security detail. The Trump administration's decision to cease USAID operations around the world that assist in treating and preventing diseases, according to Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health's Atul Gawande, will contribute to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people globally, with 2/3 of them being children. So before we wrap up, I just want to point out that while cutting aid to foreign nations, Trump has, in his deep benevolence, decided to give $5 billion in aid to Gaza, which is nice. That money is going towards the reconstruction of Gaza and to humanitarian efforts. So do with that what you will. By the way, Israel continues to bomb Gaza and kill Palestinians, the same Palestinians that we are now giving humanitarian aid to, despite Trump negotiating a ceasefire, which, I don't see a ceasefire. Ceasefire where? And yeah, they're doing all of that with our money and weapons that were also surprising. Also, who is Trump reconstructing Gaza for? All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.